back to Alaska. I am so excited to be back in this wonderful state, and unlike last time where I explored a lot of the land here, this time is all about the sea. I'm going to be joining a small ship cruise line called Uncruise, and we're going to be exploring Glacier Bay National Park and a lot of the surrounding islands. It's not just about hiking, we're going to be whale watching, kayaking, paddleboarding. This trip is all about adventure. For 7 days, we're going to be out in the sea, and I cannot wait to show you all the whales, all the bears, and all the other wildlife we are going to see on this epic week. Our ship is departing from the town of Sitka, which is the largest city here on Baranof Island. And before I show you where we're going to be living for the next week, I'm just doing a little bit of a tour of town here, starting with the Sitka National Historical Park, which has a bunch of totem poles and shows you some of the beautiful forest here, which has a lot of Sitka spruce.
The historic park is small and sits just at the end of town. Here people can learn about the Tlingit people and the defeat they had against the Russians in the 19th century. Russia owned Sitka up until about 1867 when it was sold to the US as part of the Alaska Purchase. And many buildings around town still showcase Russian influence to this day. After touring town and watching a short ethnic folk dance, it was time to board our awaiting ship, the Safari Endeavour.
Welcome aboard! We are officially almost underway, but before this ship leaves the harbor, I want to show you around the ship and our room. Come on. We are on one of the upper decks, which means we have great windows for this amazing view, but let me show you the room. It might look little, but there is plenty of space in here. We've each got a twin bed, and there's tons of drawers, even a spot to hang up our coats, little bathroom. But we're not going to be spending a ton of time in here because this experience is all about what we're going to be doing off the ship. But let me show you around the rest of the boat first.
Now, before I get too far here, let me also introduce my friend Dailyn, who joined me on this adventure. She's a fellow stuntwoman and adventure photographer, and we had so much fun on this trip. But now, let's get back to the tour.
One thing I love about our floor is that both of the hot tubs are here, and I'm sure I'm going to be spending a ton of time in them. But come on, let's see the rest. This is one of the decks that I'm going to be spending a lot of time on because it's the launch deck with all of the kayaks and the paddle boards. And one of my goals on this trip is to paddleboard with a whale, and we're going to do it from right here. This is the bow of the ship. It is such a beautiful day here in Sitka where we're starting this adventure. We're going to be on this ship for 7 days and cruising some of the inside passage here up into Glacier Bay National Park and then ending in Juneau. Now, one of the most spectacular things about being on a ship this small with just 84 guests is that we get to go to places that no big cruise ship can go. So it is a journey unlike any other cruise ship. We are going to be exploring all of the smallest areas, getting to be really up close and personal with wildlife. So it's just going to be absolutely spectacular. There's going to be so much wildlife, I can barely contain my excitement. Good morning, everybody. We are still cruising this morning and we are just in this beautiful place. The weather is perfect. It's gonna be a great day. This morning we've just been cruising around Baranof Island through what's called the Alexander Archipelago. There are more than 1,000 islands in this greater area, and we're going to be hopping off the ship right now and exploring them on foot. All right, we've got bear number one. Got a couple little babies.
After wandering the meadows and watching Mama Bear for a while, we headed into the forest, through the woods blanketed with Sitka spruce and hemlock, past wild plants and lily pads, and on to the muskeg. Back on board, we watched more wildlife as the shoreline passed us by, and then we sat down for our dinner of finely prepared Alaskan farm-to-table dishes before closing the chapter on our first full day at sea.
Good morning, it's another beautiful day here in Alaska, and this morning we woke up here. It is a beautiful day today, and we are in Chatham Strait right now. As you can see, we are just leaving the ship. One of the amazing things about being on an uncruise is, unlike a traditional cruise where you're just going from town to town, this is all about getting off the ship. And there is a lot of kayaking, a lot of land-based adventures too. Today we are on an all-day adventure. We're going to be kayaking several miles around this beautiful landscape and then heading into the woods for some bushwhacking. But this is just absolutely beautiful. It could not be more of a perfect day today. I'm so excited for whatever the day has in store.
Uncruise is definitely catered towards more of an active individual. From skiff tours and river walks to bushwhacking, kayaking, and paddleboarding, these adventures are all about getting out and actually being in the wilderness.
There are two really cool things that we're seeing right now on this paddle. One is this bull kelp, and it's actually the fastest growing plant in the world, kelp. It's also great for helping with climate change, as it actually filters a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere, and it's actually edible.
Another thing we saw a lot of on the rocks were sea stars, and Alaska has more species of sea stars than anywhere else on Earth.
So this is one of the sea star species here. It's called an ochre sea star, and a really cool fact is that the color of the sea star actually changes depending on when they were born and the temperature of the ocean. Part 2 of today's all-day adventure is getting off the kayak and actually heading up this mountain. So now that we've seen some just beautiful sea life, it's time for lunch. So we're gonna hike up this ridge behind me and enjoy a little bit of the mountain scenery, and then later on we'll be hopping back in the kayaks to head back to the ship. So what we're doing right now is called an Alaskan bushwhack. The thing about Southeast Alaska is that pretty much all the land here is actually public lands. Most of it isn't developed, so there's not exactly trails through the woods. So we're making our own.
Uncruise is definitely catered towards more of an active individual. From skiff tours and river walks to bushwhacking, kayaking, and paddleboarding, these adventures are all about getting out and actually being in the wilderness and really getting to learn about the natural ecosystems while you're walking or paddling through it.
Tonight we have a surprise. The ship is going up one of the fjords here in Southeast Alaska, and it is going to be absolutely spectacular.
Day 3 started off like most with picture-perfect weather. We got this day started with a hike through the woods. We were on an island called Chichagof Island, where I had actually been just a few years before, taking a seaplane there to try to get some photos of brown bears. Now, this island in particular has the highest concentration of brown bears on the planet. And walking through the woods might seem scary, but with our fearless leader, Doug, it was no problem at all.
Currently on a bushwhack with Danger Doug, walking through one of the first season's blueberry fields, which is delicious. It's always nice when you can bushwhack and have a snack.
Even the shortest walks here off trail make it seem like an adventure. We passed so many wild plants, crossed streams, walked through mud, up and over logs, and had a blast. Before long, we were back on the beach, heading back to the ship, putting our bathing suits on, and heading back out to sea on some paddle boards where we enjoyed the glass-like conditions, bobbed along the coastline, and looked for sea stars. That evening, we had a real treat, a beach party in honor of 4th of July. This adventure continues next week. Make sure to stay tuned and tune in next Saturday for part 2 of this Uncruise adventure to Alaska.